The question I wanted to ask you guys next is, what are you going to bring back to the States? Like what wisdom or what knowledge, what lesson? And also, despite all the Western propaganda that you got about China, now that you've seen it, what can you tell people that you know for sure isn't true in terms of the Western propaganda of it all?
I just don't think China is our enemy, and I don't think China needs to be our enemy. You know, I think that China fundamentally is a society that invests in its people, right? Whereas America invests in war. I mean, I just realized in the 20 years since 9/11, we have spent no less than $14 trillion on wars in the Middle East, on the Department of Defense. Whereas China, I don't know the exact amount, has definitely invested trillions in that time in high-speed rail, in housing development, in infrastructure. We saw that. I know some of you didn't, but we went to a rural village to eat, and they had electricity, they had running water, you know, they had 5G. And how did they have that? It's because of the legions of solar panels and wind turbines, and because of the tourism brought by the Canyon Bridge, the highest in the world, right? The thing we need to learn from China is, you know, let's see, what did they do right? The trains, the green energy, the development of housing as a right and not as an investment. These are good ideas, and we shouldn't, you know, reject them because, oh, they're our enemy, or it's communism, or some other third thing, including third spaces. And so my conclusion is basically, don't be afraid to admit that there are some things we could be doing better, and China is showing us the way.
Doing work in anti-police crimes, something I wanted to really observe for myself is this so-called police state. And by no definition could you call China a police state. In all the cities we traveled, and we traveled quite a few cities, rural and urban, we saw very little police. And the presence was hidden, right? Their presence wasn't, you know, kind of in your face. They were literally in little pods, you know, around the corner. You rarely ever saw them. But let's take Shanghai, for example. Shanghai is compared to like a New York City, like population and density. The amount of police that you would see, if this were a police state, you would see them at every corner. And you rarely see police here. The police you do see are... they're not these, you know, roided out, you know, violent people. I mean, honestly, you know, just people is decked out in militarized equipment, you know, using force. Like it's just that it was such a projection, and you cannot say this is a police state under any definition. So I think that's the main thing that I think people should know about China.
I guess I sort of said it before, but in our country, I think most people don't think another world is possible. Think all is lost, and actually, in one way, it's a no-brainer. I mean, if a government is run by the people and making decisions for the people, all these things can happen. If it's being run by the corporations and billionaires, as it is in the U.S., then we have what we have. So the hard part, of course, is this. To get to this place, it was a horrific revolution that was fought, and many lives were lost, and many sacrificed, and were determined, and it's not going to be easy for us either. We can't just turn it on, unfortunately, but it is possible.
Well, I think the main lesson in the United States is that we need to end the wars in order to build the infrastructure in the United States. Unfortunately, it's being run by oligarchs and people who are tied to what I call the Anglo-Zionist apparatus that's running a country. And it's clear that as long as they run the country, there's going to be continuous wars. And we can't build the type of infrastructure in the United States, which needs infrastructure, if we continue to these wars. And the deficit spending is unbelievable. The deficit is so great that we can't pay off the debt. I think it's like $36 trillion now. And there's a big bubble, I'm sure, in the economy that's going to probably burst at some point. And Trump is still continuing his wars, despite the fact that he promised to end the wars when he ran as president. So I think the big responsibility for us is that we have to end the wars and to remove the deep state that's driving the war policies to begin to build something like this in China.
Yeah, and building off of the like police state, we had one interaction with the police, and it was literally someone lost their phone and they had it immediately. And like I truly have heard things about that on like Red Note, TikTok, that like the police, like a lot of like the cameras and surveillance is to help people like find things that they've lost and keep everyone safe. And like we literally saw that firsthand. Like she lost her phone, and 2 minutes later, like everyone was surrounding the police, like trying to find someone who's lost their phone, and it was her phone. And like, I think that was that's just something we hear so much. It's like an authoritarian state, but like we live in such an authoritarian state. Yeah, I'm like every accusation is confession for sure. So that was like a good like thing to see in real life. I think the other thing that people need to know in the West is that like it's not hard to travel here, and you should travel here, and it's worth applying for the visa and like coming and seeing it for yourself, because like I just like can't even put into words like how amazing the cities are, but also like how welcoming the people are. I've traveled to Europe quite a bit, which is fine and great, but like I oftentimes like as a US tourist like feel like people don't really want me there. Like, to be honest, like a lot of places we travel, and like I get it. There's a lot of gentrification happening in a lot of European cities and things like that. But like I felt very welcomed here in China, and I just think there's so much to see. I mean, we only saw 3 cities, but I felt like they were so different and had completely different vibes. And like I want to go to 3 more. I want to go to 30 more. And I just I think there's so much to offer here, and everyone needs to come see it for themselves.
And I want to support what you said and what Umberto said regarding coercion and policing. I noticed the same things. I mean, my focus of my master's degree was aging women in American prisons, and I've worked with the Women's Prison Book Project since 1999, and you know, the regulations to get anything in an American prison, when you study is prisoners need to be connected with the outside so that they can successfully reintegrate. And, you know, it's opposite, and it's getting more opposite every single damn day in the United States. I would like to find out and get some ideas of where to find out about carceral policies in China, because I really don't know very much about them. I think China does still have the death penalty, doesn't it? And I don't know how it's administered. I know how it's administered in the United States. It's barbaric. But, you know, you do have to deal with problems in society and people who do become problems. But I like to think, and I would like to find out how China does that in a way that offers hope for people, rather than your life's over, you're done, you're dead, you know. And the fact that it does seem people don't walk the streets in fear here, and people do in the United States. So I support what they said, because I was watching myself. I watched those cops last night in Guyana kind of move those towers around, those portable towers. And I walked by one, and he was just standing there at the top of the stairs looking around, you know, and I smiled at him and he smiled at me. And I thought, you know, in the U.S., I wouldn't smile at him for anything, because what do you want? You know, so
Abuse of power.
yes, I just found that just so, you know, just relaxing in a way, you know, that you don't have to worry when you go out.
I feel like you can breathe here.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you just feel like a weight off your shoulders, you know?
Right.
The sense of safety, the sense of security, it's really amazing. Whereas in the States, it's quite the opposite. But then in the States, they're telling you, you know, I don't know if any of you got this before you got here, but people have said to me when I say, oh, I'm going to China, be careful, okay? Be careful. What?
Well, I remember asking my daughter when I first visited her, I said, Emily, what should I watch out for when I'm on public transportation, you know, and in terms of street crime? And she said, there isn't any. And it's true. I remember being in Beijing on the underground, and it was packed. Everybody had their phones like this. You could have shoplifted or, you know, purloined anything off someone's body, and everyone walked out with their stuff.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah. You see people leaving their stuff around everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Just like bag here, bag
In the
there.
States, I literally like clutch my purse. And I hate having to do that, but like you have to, you know, people.
Right.
I mean, people are struggling, and like I didn't get it, and I don't blame the people, but like we walked around like late at night multiple times, and I felt completely safe. Like I didn't feel like I had to clutch my bag, or like when I walked by people like feel any type of fear at all, which is a very different experience because I live in a city in the U.S. and there's certain times you like can't go out late at night for your safety and stuff like that.
Oh, just like a masterclass in like when you alleviate poverty, like crime just is non-existent anymore. And like when you actually have like affordability, like again, there is no more crime or anything like that. Yeah.
Or way less.
Yeah.
That's a really important point. I feel like the context is so essential, right? It's not just like, oh, we eradicated crime because, I don't know, the police, like we were all saying, the police thing, it's actually more so because poverty, the material conditions of people has improved. The dignity is there in this human society. You know, I think in the US, they expect things to just be like, going like that, or they blame the individual for situations, and they always make you try to forget that poverty is the reason a lot of people are forced to resort to these crimes. So.
Or they don't have like in Chicago a lot, like there's no third spaces for like people to go to, so there's like these big gatherings of like teenage youth, and like it sometimes ends in like violence and things like that, and it's just because like they have nowhere else to go, and like that is a failure of like the society. Like I don't think that's a failure of those people as individuals or their parents who are probably working like 3 jobs just to afford rent. And I just think there's so much blame on individuals like in the US. And something one of our tour guides was talking to us about was just like even the education system, like it's very like the way it sounds like people like learn here, it's like not individualistic. It's like they make sure like everyone is successful in class and it's successful in school, and it's not just like book learning. It's also like going out to maybe like the rural parts of China and like learning to plant, or like watching what like the farmers do to grow food and like sustain life, and it's just so different, and it's like such a better way to learn.
I was going to say that I totally echoed what Sarah said about another world is possible. You asked us what kind of message we want to take to Americans there. And I think it's important to show to the Americans that you're not going to get a socialist society where everybody's cared for and means something by the vote. And that, we went through Red China to see the kind of sacrifices that people make to fight for a system that really believes in people. And that if you think you're just going to get it by putting your ballot on and whatnot, and it's going to be a plain sailing, you can forget it, because the tight control that the US government and the deep state has on the people is such that they're not going to give up their power easily. In fact, they're not going to give their power easily in the rest of the world that's fighting them. So I just kind of want to say to the other people, say, another world is possible, but you got to fight for it. You know, you got to fight for it. Otherwise, don't think that it's just going to be a matter of voting.
Yeah, to kind of build on that, I think, we often, when we talk about socialism, we also often talk about economic policies. But I think something that I noticed, when we talk about, we're talking about crime, what the conditions that lead to crime. I think another aspect of that is community and being part of a community. Because if you don't have a job, you don't have healthcare, and you don't have friends or family, what do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose, right? And so if you at least have a community and people that rely on you and you rely on them, that can hold you accountable, I think that's an important aspect of socialism. And I think that's why socialism has worked so well in China, is that community. Because I think that part, if that's missing, I don't know if economic policies alone will be enough. I honestly don't. And so the message I have, that I'm going to take back is we really also have to focus and put time and energy on building community. We're seeing a little bit, or I should say, emergence of that after the ice raids. We've built a lot of community, and I think a lot of good has come from that. and a collective consciousness has come from that, which might be a good building block for socialist consciousness. But I just think that has to be an important part for any socialist project anywhere, is building community, building a collective mindset. Because if we maintain this individualistic mindset, economic policies will not work, or they'll just be rejected.
Yeah. I mean, capitalism breeds individualism because it benefits capitalism, right? It aims to isolate everybody and to turn us into these like atomized people instead of a community. So building community is an active form of creating another world, right?
Thank you to WAVE for everything, for the amazing organization. The guides were fabulous. The itinerary was wonderful. The food, the hotels, everything. I mean, we will totally recommend this tour.
Yeah.
And pledge to get more people back.
Right.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
大家好，我是主播周玉琴。很多的朋友告诉我们，选择原版的太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌，它添加有羽衣甘蓝，健康再加分。而有睡眠困扰的朋友们，赶快选择蓝色包装这一款晚安加强版，绝对是更有感。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Good， 请上快点购为健康下单，而且要记得输入推荐代码，有额外的折扣优惠。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌基础版、晚安加强版，新包装改版，内容不变，抽取更方便。要吃就吃最好的。